think there's an announcement. We have a Pontiac Vibe and a Honda CRV that need to be moved. I want to claim responsibility for that Vibe, and because I just got here, I'm that guy. But yeah, we'll take care of it. All right. True story. So I think maybe the natural place to start is to sort of talk about how you, the three of you separately, came into music. How the first time you ever knew there was an interest in hearing a sound and sort of saying, hey, that's something I'm interested in doing myself. So yeah, I'd love to hear that from each of you, how that happened.
I guess I'll start. I'm not the songwriter, but I think my first experiences with music were listening to Disney songs in the car and singing along to musicals at home on TV. But I always just loved to sing, and then in elementary school my mom said we all had to choose an instrument to learn, so I chose the violin, did that for a few years, and eventually just got really tired of reading music and decided to start doing more bluegrass fiddle styles, and then kind of went from there.
I think I grew up in a really small town. You'll probably realize that when I mumble through most of this. So I think my first introduction to music was in the church, but I didn't really ever get into singing out loud in church because I didn't feel like most of the people around me could sing that well, and I didn't want to be one of those guys. But they were making a joyful noise, so that's what matters. And so I guess that was my start. And actually, my mom used to say that when I would get rowdy in the womb, sometimes she would sit down at the piano and play old church hymns, and I would quit my rowdiness, cut it out. So I think between that and really bad pop country, that was my start with music.
What town was it? What was the small town?
Warrenton, North Carolina. It's about an hour and a half north of here.
Let's see, I grew up in Massachusetts, like Northampton, and I don't know, I think I just like making noise since I could remember, and eventually there were random instruments laying around my parents' house a lot, so just from growing up I would just hit it for a while, and then just like the way that was, and would mess with different patterns of hitting it, be like just making changes. And then I also grew up in the church, so eventually that led to playing songs in church up until I was about 14 or 15, and that's when I started to sing, because I realized I had to sing songs. And then I was playing electric guitar and drums, so I would just like to turn my amp up really loud and experiment with things, and then start messing with chords. I definitely think being in the church for a little while helped transition into the kind of songs I'm playing now, because they're real similar in nature, I guess. So that would explain some of that.
In what way do you mean they're similar in nature? How do you mean?
Just in a lot of old church songs are basically just old blue collar songs in a way, like even some of the old Union songs. A lot of them are just about God, like why God, why, but
sure.
So, and that was kind of how it was in church too. So
sounds like a church message. Andrew, when did you said you were reluctant to sing out first in church. When did you sort of say, hey, maybe I will sing this song? Was that in church as well?
No, that was, let's see, first time, I think I was like 14, and I ran into a buddy of mine who I knew played guitar, and I said, asked him if he had a guitar he wanted to sell me. And he said, no, he didn't have one he wanted to sell me, but he had one he would sell me. And so he sold me one, and I think it took me 2 weeks to buy a $100 guitar when I was 14. But so I just started playing around with that and making up chord progressions, and then learning like Pearl Jam tunes and stuff like that. So I started just like trying to be Eddie Vedder for a little while, and that's how I really just started singing and got really comfortable singing with an instrument. I was never comfortable singing without an instrument in my hand, like just being a front man. So I don't think I'll ever be a crooner of any sort. But that's how I got to start.
Emily, how that transition from the first time you said violin, and you said fiddle, that transition from reading sheet music to just sort of playing what you heard with bluegrass or country. I mean, how hard was that transition?
It was actually pretty easy because I always enjoyed playing and I enjoyed figuring out the songs, but I would always get in trouble with my violin teacher because I would learn the songs from the way I heard them on the little Suzuki CDs that come with the sheet music instead of actually reading the sheet music, and so sometimes I would miss little things. And so when I transitioned over into bluegrass and more music that you learn by ear, it was easy. It felt a lot more comfortable for me.
Sure. And who did you play with first when you started doing that? Was there a setup for that? Was there a community for that?
Yeah, I started taking lessons from a few people. A local man named Joe Snipes who's been a bluegrass man around here for a long time, and I was taking from him for a while, and then he asked if I wanted to play in his band. So
And
I was 14.
How old was he? What was the age difference between the other members and you?
I'm not quite sure how old he was, but I think maybe like late 50s, 60s.
Sure.
Most of the people I played with until I started playing with these guys were significantly older than me.
Sure. Now, Ryan, you mentioned sort of, moving from the similarities between the early songs you might have played, like church music, and these songs, but they've already mentioned sort of your rock background, like playing rock and roll first. There were certainly some similarities there from one to the other, but how about the transition, being from Massachusetts to sort of playing music that is infused with a lot of country or sounds of the South? So to speak?
It's hard to really know because I was so young as far as in my even musical thought or what I viewed as music. I didn't know very much, so it was I would say I didn't notice it very much, except that I played guitar more because I didn't have any friends, and it sucks playing drums alone all the time.
Sure.
So I don't know. I guess I'm still kind of learning that. I like finding things that are challenging and I don't know how to do. So I would say most recently, I guess I feel like I didn't know how to write a song, so I tried to learn how to do that.
Sure.
And that transition's happening, and then I don't know what the next transition will be, but so I'd say it's hard for me to tell. But that's definitely when it took off even more so than it was, where I really definitely buried myself in my room.
Mm-hmm.
And
What was your introduction to sort of playing music outside of church music, or just songs outside of church?
I played a little bit in Massachusetts in some random bands. One band was called Brain Dead Monkeys, and we would play really bad shows every now and then. So that was the first time, and then once I moved here, it's kind of when I stopped playing in church, so just then had to figure out how to play shows at venues.
Sure.
And that was just throughout high school.
Okay.
But places like Go Studios, they were always really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the place I work now, Nightlight, which was Skylight then, they were always good about letting kids that don't know what they're doing in.
Sure. Yeah, there is sort of that system of venues here. And I know, both bands, just as either Box Bombers, Ryan, and then maybe Mandolin Orange, you guys from the very start were able to find sort of venues to sort of explore what you did. Talk about that setup here and what it allows you to do as a band to find your audience and your sound at the same time.
I think it's amazing. I don't know a place where it would really be easier to start. And then even from start have so much more to offer after that. Even it's everywhere. You can we met them at the trains. Probably a year ago. And
Well, Ryan, you asked us to play your CD release show, which was a year ago, and we were so excited and super intimidated because it was at the local 506 and we'd never played there, and we thought it was just only a rock bar. But everyone's just super open, I think, to different genres of music, and it doesn't just have to be a rock bill, and people tend to really mix it up around here, and venues don't seem to be intimidated by that either. So.
And even beyond venues here, the span goes a little bigger than some cities that even just have venues. There's so many people that are pretty good at recording and things like that just want someone to record with. So you can get my whole album I did for free with me and my friend, and I didn't spend any money on anything, and that's something that's available in this town too, is if you live in the world and you just dive into the world completely, and naturally you can kind of find everything that you need, down to venues, studios, you know, some promoters, you know, get lots of bands to play with. You know, so it's definitely very good.
I would add to that, like the listeners around here, it seems, are very open to all kinds of styles of music. You know, I think just with the university that brings people in from all over the place and that are used to all different styles of music. And I know that, like, when I moved up here like 3 years ago, I found all these people to play for, which I never had before, because in my hometown it was like, you know, a very closed-minded group of music listeners, and so I think the listeners around here are really awesome.
That helps. I guess we should listen then. All right, you guys want to play?
Yeah.
Sit down. All right.